Hello and welcome to 80s Nostalgia. Today we're going over the John Hughes directed teen cinematic classic, The Breakfast Club. The only way to describe this movie is iconic. It is directed by the 80s director himself, the one and only John Hughes. Hughes is also the director of 16 Candles, Weird Science, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, Home Alone, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The Breakfast Club is one film history's most iconic and renowned movies, and is a cornerstone of 1980s pop culture. Many describe it as the best teen movie of all time, with students coming from different backgrounds, conflicting with each other, but then conflicting with their supervisor, coincidentally causing them to bond together and do away with their differences. The film examines the psychological phenomena of stereotypes, normative social influence, in-group versus out-group superordinate goals, and the various causes of attraction. Mr. Vernon is the cause of the students doing away with their nervousness and differences, easing them up to settle differences, be themselves, get to know each other, and have a little fun. This is why the traditional statement, "Never judge a book by its cover," should always be set in stone. We will never know if the students were still friends on Monday, but they enter as 5 different people, become friends, and leave as 5 different people. In the words of Brian's essay in the beginning, he states that's the way they saw themselves at 7 a.m. were as 5 different people. In the closing credits, the same message is given, with a slight change. Instead of saying, "You see us how you want to see us," Brian now says,
"But what we found out is that each one of us is a brain, and an athlete,
and a basket case, a princess,
and a criminal." Does that answer your question? Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club.
A conclusion to their getting to know each other, being different, yet being able to still bond as 5 different people. In terms of the value of the movie, The Breakfast Club meant a lot to those growing up in the 80s. Many say it is the most meaningful movie they have ever seen, and it changed their life forever, as they feel they related to one of the characters. It can truly be said that The Breakfast Club is a timeless classic. Things you may not have known about John Hughes movies and The Breakfast Club. Shermer High School is the fictitious high school created by John Hughes in honor of his hometown. A fictitious suburb of Chicago, Shermer, Illinois, is based on Hughes's hometown of Northbrook. Illinois used to be called Shermerville, and Hughes's high school, Glenbrook North High School, was located on 2300 Shermer Road, Northbrook, Illinois, 60062, thus creating the fictitious name Shermer High. The Shermer High School films were all filmed at Main North High School in Des Plaines, Illinois, located northwest of Chicago, yet it was named after the street that John's High School and Old Town were in. So the library of The Breakfast Club is actually the Main North High School library. How many of Hughes' movies were at Shermer High? Ferris Buellers Day Off and The Breakfast Club were being filmed together, at the same location, Shermer High, the same high school as Weird Science, attended by Gary Wallace, and 16 Candles, attended by the Geek and Samantha Baker. Now let's take a look at the characters, actors, casting, and behind the scenes. John Kapelos played Man of the Year, Carl the Janitor. Before The Breakfast Club, John Kapelos was in 16 Candles and Weird Science, with Ringwald and Hall, respectively. Hall and John were in all 3 movies together, for Hughes. Rick Moranis was originally cast as Carl the Janitor, after having creative differences with John. Ned Tannen, the producer of The Breakfast Club, released Rick Moranis. They felt that Rick's portrayal of Carl the Janitor as a grotesque Russian wouldn't fit into the movie, so the role went to John Kapelos. Kapelos was in 16 Candles, Weird Science, and The Breakfast Club. Emelio and Judd were laughing a lot one day while filming. It was around 4 o'clock. Kapelos said this to the two one day. "Come on now, don't laugh so much. Look, real actors, guys that care about things, guys that care about their work.
into the room, and Emelio and I are laughing pretty hard that day. It's just a funny day. It's around 4:15, the witching hour. I'm starting to fall out a little bit, and we're both just laughing really hard. We're shooting John's direction, and John would like us to get a bit more serious to help him off camera. Come on now, don't laugh so much. And then when you're laughing and someone tells you not to laugh, you, of course, laugh more. He gets a little upset with us, and he says, look, real actors, guys that care about things, guys, Kapelos says this to me and Emelio, says, guys that care about their work, guys like Martin Sheen, he cares about it. He had a fucking heart attack on Apocalypse Now. Emelio stops laughing. I fall out of the chair. I'm laughing so hard, it's like in that movie Altered States, when he's hitting his hand against something solid because he's there to bring himself back to life. And I don't know where to look. I don't know what to do. But Emilio's now staring directly at Kapelos.
When John joked about Martin Sheen suffering a heart attack on the set of Apocalypse Now, Kapelos was unaware at the time that Emelio Estevez is Martin Sheen's son, and hearing that joke angered Estevez greatly. As Judd said, he was not laughing anymore and was paying attention. Estevez eventually forgave Kapelos, and shooting continued. Kapelos still felt terrible about it for years. However, when he guest starred on The West Wing, he told Martin Sheen the story, and Martin found it very funny. Brian Johnson, The Brain. All three are movies that John Kapelos are movies Anthony Michael Hall is also in. During filming, he was 16 years old, along with Molly Ringwald. The two of them had to go back to the hotel and do homework, while the other three high schoolers were in their 20s. Anthony was actually the first actor offered the role as Ferris Bueller, which he highly regrets turning down. In the beginning of the film, Brian's mother and sister were actually played by Anthony Michael Hall's real-life mother, Mercedes Hall, and sister Mary Christian. And his father, who picked him up at the end of detention, was none other than writer and director John Hughes. Ali Sheedy had a nickname for Hall on set of The Breakfast Club. It was Milk and Cookies, and Michael hated the nickname. Speaking of Ali Sheedy, she played the basket case, Allison Reynolds. Before Ali Sheedy, the perfect actor for Allison Reynolds. The first consideration was Brooke Shields, who was 20 years old in 1985. Allison began the movie as an outcast and transformed in the end to a more preppy look, like Claire Standish at the end. Ali Sheedy herself said she didn't like the change in character. And most fans feel the same way. The original Allison was more quiet, reserved, and crazy in a sense. When Ali Sheedy auditioned for 16 Candles, she had to black eyes after a set building accident. Her black eyes gave her a gothic, dark look that John Hughes never forgot. When it was time to cast Allison in this film, Hughes immediately thought of Sheedy and her black eyes. John Bender, the criminal, before Judd Nelson was cast as John Bender. Jim Carrey, Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, and Alan Ruck were all considered for the role. John Hughes felt that Alan Ruck just didn't fit the role, but put him in the Next Door movie, as Cameron Fry in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But John felt that John Cusack wasn't intimidating enough. In the movie, Bender drops the F-bomb 47% of the total times, basically 12 times of the 26 total F-bombs in the movie. Judd did, however, attend high school classes while they were training and sat in the back for practice. And he was even sent to the principal's office twice. He was apparently acting in John Bender's true character. He even bought beer for some of the teenagers with his supposed fake ID. They hung out at his hotel room, and when they asked why he was staying in a hotel, he told them that he had to live there because his father was in jail. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, another John Hughes classic, is also a Shermer High movie. Hughes has stated that Del Griffith, played by John Candy, actually lives 2 houses down from John Bender. Claire Standish, the princess. Before Molly Ringwald was cast, Jodie Foster, Laura Dern, Diana Lane, and Robin Wright auditioned for the role of Claire Standish. John Hughes casted Molly in 3 films: The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, and 16 Candles. Andrew Clark, the athlete. Emelio was actually the 5th actor considered after the casting of Michael J. Fox. Tom Cruise, Matthew Broderick, and Rob Lowe. Emelio was 23 during filming, the same age as Ali Sheedy. Judd Nelson was 25 years old. After filming, while Ringwald and Hall were doing homework, Emelio and Judd were out being the brat pack. The character of Andrew was changed from a football player to a wrestler to change the jock stereotype a little. Next is Vice Principal Richard Vernon. Vernon is played by Paul Gleason. Vernon is Shermer High School's vice principal. He is a strict authoritarian who even goes as far to heckle and abuse John Bender, just like his father does. He can be compared to Edward Rooney, the dean of students in Shermer High, in Ferris Buellers Day Off. Both in their own ways go to any measures, even if it was illegal or abusive to discipline or punish a student. Ferris Bueller in Ed Rooney's case. Rooney went to and broke into Bueller's home, while Vernon locked Bender in a closet and initiated a fight. In the movie, Carl the Janitor convinces Richard that because of the way that he has treated the students, they will not take care of him in the future. And at the end of the movie, while reading Brian's essay, Vernon sees that Carl is right all along. Speaking of convincing, Paul Gleason had to convince John Hughes, just like Judd Nelson was in character in high school class. He was in total character on set and was bullying Molly Ringwald too much, to the point where John Hughes was very close to firing him. But Paul Gleason, Mr. Vernon, petitioned to keep Judd on the cast, as he felt he was focused on the acting and doing a good job. Ironically, Richard Vernon saved John Bender. When Vernon fakes a punch towards Bender, Judd Nelson actually thought Paul Gleason was going to hit him, and his flinching in the film was genuine. Cast member ad-libbing. For the scene where the group is sitting in a circle and confessing why they were in detention, the film's director, John Hughes, encouraged them all of the actors to ad-lib, just like they did with the dance and smoke scenes. This was one of many reasons the cast loved working with John, because he let them use their own creativity and even sat with them between shoots. Judd Nelson came up with the insult Neo Maxi Zoom Dweeby himself. For Bender's final scene, Judd Nelson was supposed to just walk into the sunset. John Hughes told Nelson to try a few different actions to see which one worked. Once again, to use creativity and ad-lib. At the last minute, Nelson threw his fist in the air, and everyone on set loved it. So, it was kept in the film. Such an iconic image in itself, and ending to a movie. There were several different changes in casting that many don't know about. Anthony Michael Hall was originally offered the lead role as Ferris Bueller in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, as mentioned before, but Hall turned it down, which he regrets. Matthew Broderick was also offered the role was Alex P. Keaton first, before Michael J. Fox, but Matthew didn't want to be committed to a long television run and chose to do movies. And as stated earlier, Matthew was casted as Andrew Clark, while Alan Ruck was cast as John Bender. So how different would things be if Ferris Bueller was Andrew Clark, if Cameron Fry was John Bender, and if Brian Johnson was Ferris Bueller? How confusing that sounds. One can wonder who would end up playing Brian Johnson. Maybe Judd Nelson would have been Cameron Fry, with Anthony Michael Hall in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. How interesting would that be? I think Judd would fit the role of Cameron Fry easily. But I think nobody could play Ferris Bueller other than Matthew. Please comment what you think. John Hughes' color scheme for the movie. John Hughes did pay deep attention to color tones in the detention hall. He wanted the library to be bland with no color, hence the brown wood. And each student had their own tone that connected to their character. Brian was green and yellow, Allison was black and brown, Claire was pink and pastels, Andrew was blue and white, and John was red and black. John Hughes originally had John as blue and black, with Andrew as red and white, but switched it. Not to mention Claire's original name in the script was Kathy. The Breakfast Club was not the first teen movie of the 80s, but it was the first to create a theme. 16 Candles had a slapstick comedy with some uncomfortable racial humor. Fast Times at Ridgemont High by Amy Heckerling was R-rated and focused on shock value, with a little nudity. But The Breakfast Club did away with all that and focused on 5 high school students. And life. The Breakfast Club undeniably laid the foundation for a whole new kind of teen drama, one motivated less by plot and more by mood, and was in the 80s to those growing up, but still is to those who watch it today, a template for their own lives, because one can usually relate to one of the 5 students at some point in their life, if not more than one. Thank you to John Hughes, Ned Tannen, Anthony Michael Hall, Emelio Estevez, Ali Sheedy, Molly Ringwald, Judd Nelson, Paul Gleason, and John Kapelos. For the 80s classic nostalgic movie, The Breakfast Club. Please take a moment to click on the like and subscribe buttons to view future 80s nostalgia videos. We hope you enjoyed the memorable moments. And thank you for your time. 80s forever.